Hey, it's Soul bringing everybody here my review for chapter 114 of One Piece. And let's just get right into it because right off the bat, there is so much to talk about in this chapter. Wano is an arc that will subvert expectations. I've been saying this a couple times now if you've been watching my videos, but I think that people are severely underestimating how long the Wano arc is really going to be, and I think that it could very well lead into the endgame of the series. Lots of people are saying that the next arc will be Elbaf, but I feel like there must be some sort of incentive for the Straw Hats to want to travel there as their next location. But at the moment, I just don't see that happening. Sure, they will go to Elbaf at some point, I'm just saying it won't be after Wano. We need to remember that the waters the Straw Hats will be sailing through from now on won't ever be the same again, because there's no more balance in the world. From the intermissions we got in between acts, we know that the world has changed. With the warlord system gone and the possible defeat of an emperor or two, the Marines will become the dominant force on the sea. And not only that, but armies and countries are in a state of fallout following the revelation with the major incidents concerning Sabo and Alabasta. So one thing is certain, that there's no more room for leisure adventures to random islands. The time for pirating is over. I think it's time that we gear ourselves up for the endgame. And, this could just be me personally, but I think that no matter how strong Luffy will become by the end of Wano, I still don't see him being comparable to Kaido because Luffy did not beat him in a straight 1v1 from the get-go. However, I'm sure that Luffy could finally fill his role as a cemented Emperor of the Sea. Within this chapter, there was just so many things that Oda has very subtly hinted at, and I think that these revelations will all be explored as the arc goes on, and I can't wait until we learn more. I have a feeling that these potential revelations could flip our entire perception of the series and how the future of it will look like. Now, one of these revelations just happens to be on the topic of Joy Boy, who many people have speculated for countless years on what he could be, what is his story, and it's really intriguing that it's brought up here now in Wano, and I'm sure that this is going to be like a big plot point coming up later. I'm sure what intrigued everybody though was that Kaido knew about him. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but thus far into the series, I think the only person that has ever talked about Joy Boy was Roger, right? Slowly we're getting more and more of Kaido's character, and with every passing chapter, he's becoming one of the best antagonists of the series, or one of the most interesting, I should say. And his flashback shows so much potential with these recent revelations. But how does Kaido know about Joy Boy exactly? Did he have some sort of past connection to Roger, or perhaps Kaido learned something on God Valley? Although it's highly unlikely, it could be possible that Kaido even read Oden's journal at some point. There are many options and just so much to explore with Kaido that it's still too early to draw any conclusions. Now, Kaido says to Luffy that he couldn't be Joy Boy either, which is some very intriguing dialogue. The translation might be different in the official release, but in the scans where I read, Kaido doesn't say that Luffy isn't Joy Boy, he says that he couldn't be Joy Boy, which makes it seem like being Joy Boy is more of a role rather than some form of reincarnation, which if that's the case, I'd be really happy with because I do not like any character's life being dictated upon fate, reincarnation, lineage, etc. Now, from the way that Kaido phrases his sentence, it seems like Luffy met some sort of criteria during their fight for Kaido to even consider putting him as a possible candidate for that role. Perhaps it just had something to do with Luffy's demeanor or the way he was always smiling, because as we see in chapter 1011, Kaido already has some sense of curiosity or intrigue towards Luffy. But for that demeanor to pique Kaido's interest in the first place, it would mean that he had experienced something or someone similar to Luffy in the past. Now guys, I know what you're thinking. Oh, it has to be Roger, right? Now, I think that would also be the simple answer, but I think it's somebody completely different that we have not seen yet. The real Joy Boy perhaps, or maybe somebody that used to assume that role. And no, I don't think the person that assumed that role was Roger. Man, like, I kid you not, I could go on and on about this one part of the chapter, because as I'm just sitting down right now and recording this, so many ideas, man, so many ideas are coming into my head. Like right now, I'm thinking that since Kaido had a suspicion that Luffy could be Joy Boy, whatever that would mean right now, whether it's a reincarnation or a role, It would mean that Luffy must have met some sort of criteria beforehand to even be considered for this position in the first place. Now, Kaido saying that Luffy couldn't be Joy Boy is implicitly saying that he failed to meet that criteria, which means that Luffy did something throughout the course of their fight that made Kaido come to that conclusion in the first place. Or perhaps it's just the fact that Luffy lost, which would mean that Kaido is aware of some sort of prophecy that somebody like Joy Boy will come to defeat him and open up the land of Wano. But then again, wouldn't that only be something Roger's crew and Oden would know, since they're the only ones that travel to Raftel? It's just crazy. It's crazy to me how much speculation can come out of one sentence. Just look, I'm almost 6 minutes into the video and I haven't even gotten past the first page yet. Well, that's One Piece for you, right? Let's just move on to something else. Alright, let's briefly talk about Yamato. So, obviously with Luffy gone, there's no reason for Yamato to go up to the roof anymore. And her father Kaido isn't even there anymore to begin with, so I'm not sure exactly what will happen to her at this point. But since Luffy's annihilation was broadcasted to the entire island, I have a feeling that she'll go back to where Momo was and where her father is now, which will give Shinobu and Momo enough time to escape as she stalls him. Because, let's be honest, if nobody intervenes at this point, Momo is pretty much dead. Because, you know, even though Shinobu's there, she isn't exactly the best fighter. I mean, she could be a good meat shield. At best. Speaking of Momo, he too has had some very interesting dialogue this chapter. Obviously, a lot of people have speculated that Momo is an ancient weapon. Now, I'm not a big fan of this theory, but based on what Momo was saying after reading Oden's journal, I think the possibility is much stronger than ever. Right now, there's no denying that he'll obviously play a big role in the future. Now, I doubt that the journal itself specifically mentions Momo, but rather an ability which he possesses, that to control Zunisha, which I would say is definitely comparable to the power of an ancient weapon, especially if there exists a time in which, you know, there were many of Zunishas walking around on the ocean. However, the question now arises, why Momonosuke? We know that Oden and Roger were able to hear Zunisha too. We don't know if they were able to control him, it, her. But what is it that makes Momonosuke special exactly? Because, for example, we got the prophecy for Shirahoshi where a mermaid princess will be born that can control the Sea Kings, but we haven't really gotten any of that for Momonosuke. From, you know, what we've seen, he's just some ordinary kid, and nothing really sets him apart other than he can command Zunisha, which apparently no one else can do so far. Remember how Zunisha was trying to communicate with Momonosuke, and, well, Luffy heard it too, but there was this big loud ringing sound in their ears, and the same thing happened just a page after in this chapter, but I don't think that this thing is Zunisha, whatever it is. There would be far too many things that wouldn't make sense, so I think people are being too quick to judge and say, oh, Zunisha's here to save the day or whatever. Number one, Zunisha has no free will of its own, so it needs Momo's command to do anything, which means it wouldn't even be able to go to Wano on its own anyway. Number two, Momo questions who the voice is, so obviously this would mean that it's something brand new. I'm sure he would recognize the voice if, you know, it was Zunisha. I'm inclined to believe that it's something dwelling on Wano, because Momo only started to hear the voice after the island approached land, but I'm not really sure what it could be. I watched Joyboy Theories' video on chapter 114, link to his channel in the description by the way, but he made an interesting point where Momo could be Shirahoshi's equivalent of an ancient weapon except for land animals, like giant land animals like Zunisha for example, and he brought up the mountain god or its child. Now, although I thought that was plausible at first, after giving it some thought, I don't think that it really could be. I think that there's a clear distinction between, you know, these animals like the mountain god and the more sentient ones like Zunisha or the Sea Kings. The mountain god just seems like some overgrown boar, while the others clearly have some sort of consciousness. I'm not really sure what Momo could be hearing if it's not them, so please leave your ideas in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Moving on now, we have arrived to Chopper, who I must say was quite impressive this chapter. He didn't exactly do anything, but just the fact that he's able to swing Queen around like that while being attacked by Pearl Sparrow while having no sword haki whatsoever and losing to trees the arc before is super impressive, so good for him. That's some serious character progression. He also got his equivalent of a Rayleigh flashback, except it's Caesar Clown, and I'm not gonna lie, I kind of hate that I miss him. Speaking of which, where is he exactly? I highly doubt he's still on Whole Cake Island, so why didn't Oda dedicate some of Beji's cover story to him? That would have been infinitely more interesting than what we got, because that cover story, as it stands now, is straight up trash. But anyway, I'm kind of getting sidetracked here, so back to the chapter. Where were we? Right, Chopper. He extended the duration of his monster point by 10-fold with the help of Caesar. Now, this is an amazing power-up, but it does come with some additional risks. So, I'm wondering what they could be, because already when Chopper loses his monster point form, he already loses all his ability to move. So I'm wondering what kind of side effect could be worse than that. I'd like to say that he goes berserk, but I doubt that'll happen or even make a difference with how powerful the enemies are here. I'm also curious what will happen to Chopper if he ate a second Rumble Ball now, because we know that after the time skip training, Chopper could go into any form he wants that isn't Monster Point form without eating a Rumble Ball. But now that he only consumes one Rumble Ball, he goes into Monster Point form, so now I'm wondering what would happen if he ate 2 Rumble Balls. Because now it'll obviously have a different effect than pre-time skip. Now back to me boy Kaido, who makes Bao Huang exclaim his victory to everybody, and obviously they are in disbelief, well, the allies anyway, which follows what Kaido said about none of them losing their faith unless they see Luffy's head. But it really does look like Luffy is down and out and sinking in the water, so it'll be pretty crazy if the Big Mom Pirates actually save him, but obviously I think the Law's crew in the submarine is more likely. Also, some minor info that I picked up on says that Luffy is the rebel with the highest bounty. So does that mean that he has a higher bounty than Marco? I don't know. It was just something I thought I'd point out. So KKK, Kinemon, Kanjuro, and Kiku. I'm not going to dwell on this much because I've already said all my thoughts in my first impressions video of chapter 1014. So I suggest you watch that. But in short, Kanjuro is 100% dead. Kinemon is not dead just yet, but will die in the next chapter, and Kiku could possibly survive if help arrives on time. Now, this entire chapter, especially the ending, had that tension that I was looking for throughout this entire raid. This is exactly what I wanted, and even if Oda doesn't have the best track record for character deaths, he was still able to deliver emotionally, well, at least for me, nearly to the point of tears. We gotta remember that, for Kiku, Odin's death was only like a month ago, so she's very susceptible to this kind of emotional damage, and Kanjuro knew that. And, you know, it just hit me in the feels how, despite knowing that it wasn't Odin and it was Kanjuro, she just couldn't bring herself to hurt Odin's image, because essentially Odin was like a father to her. Man, Oda, why do you do this to me? And Kanjuro, being the manipulative bastard he was, he knew this all along and how to play with people's emotions. And he took the strike without hesitation. And even though Kanjuro, I hate what he's done, he was a great antagonist through and through. I just wish we kind of got more of him, to be honest. However, the scariest part of this chapter by far was when Kaido randomly appeared out of nowhere. It was established already that through the Mary, their positions were exposed, but I didn't expect Kaido himself to show up so soon, and that just caught me completely off guard. And knowing that the only thing between Momonosuke was Kinemon, I thought somebody would have to intervene for sure, but instead Kinemon went back to his roots. It seems like his death was foreshadowed all the way since Punk Hazard. I kind of feel bad laughing at that, but really, it hurts knowing that we have this one rather ordinary dude protecting his lord's son from this unstoppable monster, but, you know, up until the very last moment, Kinemon never wavered at anything. Like I said before though, I don't think he's dead just yet, even though his sword's broke, because, you know, he's been with us for far too long for him to have no sort of dying speech. So I am not looking forward to that. I am definitely not looking forward to that. Also, a small detail I think some missed is that Luffy actually cracked Kaido's club a bit. Not sure if that'll be important later on, but I thought I'd point it out anyway. Last but not least, we see Onigashima looming closer and closer to the land of Wano, and slowly but surely, we're getting closer and closer to my theory coming true. If you wanna hear my thoughts on that and what will happen in the future, link in the description. But yeah, that pretty much does it for my review. Overall, I think the chapter was amazing. I was expecting it to be good because it was the ending to volume 100, but you know, I think I set my expectations a little too low because this chapter was enjoyable as hell, even though it didn't have that, you know, the big reveal that I was expecting. But it was still a great chapter overall. I think I give it like a 9 or 9.5 out of 10. It was super enjoyable. I saw the tension. It had everything I wanted. And hopefully this means that there are finally going to be some deaths. Well, yeah, that pretty much does it for this review. If you liked the video, go down and like it. Subscribe to the channel for more future content like this. And I will see you all very, very soon.